I need to see everybody play 10 games.
Yep, that's been our standard.
Little over a quarter of the season. You get a good mix of quality in terms of your opponents, tactics, a good idea, rotation, what certain players can and can't do. And then I can sit here and buy into, yes, this team's a Scudetto contender. This team's probably headed to, this team's screwed, probably headed to relegation. I mean, Frosinone will probably talk about relegation all season long. They're managed by EDF and
yeah,
so and that sort of thing. But my opinion doesn't change drastically about Lecce. What I said last week. I mean, I need more sample. But I am going to get into them a little bit because, man, I was I'll tell you what. I'm going to just say it right now. Here's my tout that I'm going to get ahead of everybody else on right off the bat. This Pontus Almqvist that they did somebody tell
good.
him.
He was good.
Did somebody tell him that this wasn't the extra class or the Eredivisie or the Allsvenskan, where the leagues that he played in prior to this?
Yeah, man. He was one of the better players of the night.
I'll even tell you the team he played for last season. He played in the Polish First Division for Pogoń Szczecin.
Gesundheit.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah, let those other podcasts tell you where he comes from. I bet you they don't say a damn thing, right?
That's right.
So, I mean, yeah. So we're not going to sit here and overreact. We're going to give a good, practical, and idea of what did we see from every team on match day one. Okay.
I will say this though. After our podcast, literally after the podcast ended, I had a whole epiphany on my top 20 or on the rankings where they're at. So I can almost guarantee my top 4 at the end of the Mercato will be different than what I said on the podcast.
Oh yeah, it's definitely going to be different. Okay, we need sample. We need to see these guys a little bit. We need the Mercato to wrap up. We did our top 20s. We did our rankings, or we did our predictions as the teams looked going into match week 1. Okay, and we said we have the right to change this when the window shuts, because some of these teams will change a little bit between now and then, and some of these teams have already changed. Since we were last on the air. So here you're going to get practical analysis here of what we saw of each game, what we saw from each team. Maybe a little why we're excited about them, why we're grouchy about them, that sort of stuff. I think I found a little bit about each team,
Cool.
As I was going through the games, Richard. So how about we just knock this off game by game? We don't often do that. We don't often we usually will just highlight a couple of big games and then we'll just batch the rest.
Right.
But let's start off with the champions. They traveled to Frosinone and win 3-1. Let me pull up my bear with me a second here. Okay. So they travel to Frosinone. They win 3-1. It is not the greatest start for the defending champions, and in particular, Jens Kajust, who got his first start, fouling, I believe it was Baez in the penalty area.
Yeah.
4 minutes in. A lot of debate and discussion about it. Did he do it? Did he not? Et cetera, et cetera. Well, they ultimately gave a penalty. Abdul Hauri scores the penalty in the 7th minute. And oh great, you just made them mad. It's really the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Politano on the rebound 1-1, and then Victor Osimhen doing Victor Osimhen things. He braces one on a nice ball from Giovanni Di Lorenzo, and then another one from Giovanni Di Lorenzo. So 3-1 for Napoli. I think the easiest place to start with, Richard, is the debut of Kajus, because that's what everybody was talking about, at least in the Twitter spaces and in the social medias. Nightmare start, yellow card, concedes a penalty, and gets yanked at halftime.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think he's going to be fine. I saw some passes and I saw some things in his repertoire where he's going to be really effective for Napoli. And let's just, in my opinion about Kajus, hey, you just chalk this up as a bad day. I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah, I mean, of course, first game jitters of the new club. He's not the only one who had some jitters with their new clubs, and we'll get to Inter and Sommer. But yeah, I mean, again, you had it's millimeters, right? Where it was, he taking the kick. If he gets the ball, misses the guy, it's nothing to worry about. It's okay first half, but I mean, a clear penalty in the first 10 minutes of the game, and
Yeah.
after that he wasn't that great overall. So yeah, first game jitters. I'm gonna chalk it up to as another chance. The question is, will Rudy Garcia, look at it that way? I assume he will. He's a manager's been here, done that, been there, done that. So I imagine he'll be calm about this as well. Now, if this goes 10 games or whatever, yeah, I could see, be a different story. But it's first game, new guys in the new league, it's to be expected, really.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. The other note that I had about Napoli is I think Napoli supporters need to be happy that Zielinski's wife wanted to stay in Italy and didn't want to go to Saudi Arabia. He looked great.
Yeah.
And when you don't have Kvaratskhelia out there to give you some playmaking from the wide areas, then you're really going to need Zielinski to do it through the midfield. I thought he was very influential in this game. Created a lot of great chances. Shame that he didn't get an assist or get on the score sheet with a goal because I think he deserved it. But you can look at Osimhen and Di Lorenzo, who I thought were both outstanding in this game. But then after that, you have to look at Zielinski's role in this match and the performance he put in, and probably a relief to Partenopei supporters that he's still there.
Yeah, I think so. It's a testament that it makes that midfield even stronger, right? We talked about last year how good Zielinski, Anguissa, and Lobotka were, and it was evident in this game, in particular, Lobotka and Zielinski. A lot of it came through the midfield. Looking at the some of the statistics from the game, and now that's not working for me. Why is this not showing for me? It's not showing. Oh, wait a minute.
It's probably like the volume on my mic.
Yeah, it's not working for me now, but whatever. Anyway, what I was trying to show is a chart of where the ball was coming up, and Napoli played fairly direct up the middle because balls come from defense to Lobotka to Zielinski, and then going up the pitch and trying to get their chances that way. So yeah, Zielinski is a big part of that. I think having him this season will be it's a good sign for Napoli to kind of try to repeat this year because you need to have all your pieces. Yeah, they lost Min Jae Kim, but to have that midfield intact and have a player of the caliber of Zielinski, it's just going to make Napoli that more dangerous, than if he wasn't there. So yeah, glad to see him, and I'm sure Partenopei supporters are just jumping at the rafters, with the fact that he's staying.
All right, here's where I'll just pull it back on Napoli just a little bit. Frosinone didn't test him. The jury's still out on if the Juan Jesus Rahmani partnership is going to be as effective. I have questions about them defensively still. Frosinone did not ask enough of them in this game. So for me, I have a hard time believing that this is just pick up where they left off. I need to see teams that are really going to put some pressure on their back line, teams that are going to press them too, because Frosinone didn't really do any of that.
I mean, look at the shot. Look at the shots right here. Like Napoli just completely outshot them from everywhere around the box. Frosinone had 4 attempts. Attempts. Obviously, one was a goal, but that was a penalty. So I mean, they really did nothing. And it was Napoli. Yes, they weren't at their best, but they got the job done. That's what's most important, right?
Yep, I agree. And so that's where certainly some of the mainstays with Napoli certainly stepped up and performed in the absence of a player like Kvaratskhelia. Big questions about them defensively still because I don't think Frosinone asked them. So need to see them against a team that's going to put some pressure on them. And like I said earlier, I think a team that's going to press them into mistakes, because to me, Juan Jesus is a guy that when he's got the ball, you can go ahead and go after him and get him uncomfortable. Rahmani has made a lot of improvements, made a lot of strides. I think Giovanni Di Lorenzo is the best right back in this league. And the left-hand side, okay, they're going to be able to rotate that between Oliveira and Rui, but I need to see if they have been able to, can they adequately replace Kim Min-jae? And the answer to me is still no. Even with this game and even with this performance, I'm not there yet. I need to see a team that's going to put them to the test.
Who stood out the most for you for Napoli in this situation? Obviously, for me, look outside of the defenders. Obviously, the player who had the most touches in the game for Napoli was Lobotka. Lobotka was the key cog last year in this whole team and really got this team going, especially with that transition from defense to offense. He and Zielinski had the most touches, and it's not surprising. Obviously, Lobotka is the guy who is your transition guy, but he does so much for the team. And when he's humming, which majority of the games last year he was humming, other than the one game he had the blip, that 4-0 loss. He's so instrumental for his team, and he doesn't get enough respect. We talked about this at the end of last season. Like Lobotka is just like unbelievably underrated. This guy is just phenomenal, and everything comes through him, and he kind of gets this whole motor going with Napoli, whether Havrashil is there or not, right? As long as he's there and he's humming, then you got Zelensky there. This team's going to be doing very well. It's going to be scoring a lot of goals this season.
I would say Lobotka's performance was a safe one in this game. I mean, hell, I mean, he had 60 pass attempts. I mean, he basically helped his team keep the ball. I mean, 59 passes found his teammates out of a possible 60. Yeah. And we're not, don't want to start talking about him like being, but there wasn't anything in his passing that he didn't do anything dangerous. He just helped his team keep the ball. He didn't take risks. He left the risk to Zielinski. Yep. He got Di Lorenzo in positions wide where he could do some crossing, do some damage. And he got balls into guys like Raspadori and Politano, but didn't really take any risks in this game. I would call Lobotka's performance safe here.
That's his job, really. That's his job. Really.
Exactly. Win it, intercept it, and sit behind the five guys, the two guys that are flanking you in the midfield, and the three guys in front of you. Let them get the pressure on the opponent. It's going to funnel to you. You get it. Find one of them. Start it up again, and that's his role. And he does it. He does it to a T. So I thought that was fine. I thought Giovanni Di Lorenzo was the best player on the pitch for Napoli. Mm-hmm. I mean, Osimhen certainly scored the goals, but Di Lorenzo provided them. And I thought that as the game went on, he got more and more dangerous on that right-hand side. I mean, the guy and his work rate was fantastic. So He's one of the guys that really impressed me out of all 16 of these teams this weekend. He was one of my, one of the guys that I put some pretty high notes on. On the Frosinone side, I think Giuseppe Cazzo is a useful player. He didn't get to show it too much here. Baez is going to get a lot of credit for drawing the penalty. And then Harawiu is a guy they brought over who scored the penalty. So, yeah, there's pieces. They lack a striker presence. I don't think this Cooney is going to be someone that's going to help them. But Cazzo to me is the most useful. I think as a team, we talked about this maybe being one of the weakest, probably being the weakest squad in Serie A. And the couple things that stood out to me. Number one, they just don't have the speed that Napoli has, and that's going to be a big, big problem the rest of the way in Serie A. They just, what they do works in Serie B, and they want to keep the ball and they want to play a little bit, and I give them a lot of credit for it. But they are just, man for man on the pitch, they were a step slower than Napoli. And then what's worse is there's just little to no cover in their defensive shape. You had two center backs on Osimhen's first goal. You had two center backs. Either one of them could have picked him up and tracked his run, and they both just still. It boggles my mind how let's just sit and hold the six, and then he just drifts off, gets kind of closer to the penalty spot distance. Let's say 10, 12 yards out, it comes back to him. And it's an easy goal. It's just like, how do you not stay with him? There's two of you there, so. This is going to be tough going for Frosinone, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's a shame that because what they did in Serie B last year, and obviously this is a different league completely, but Grosso, I think, understood what this team was about and what their strengths were, and got them to succeed, tremendously in Serie B. It would have been nice to see how he would have done in Serie A, but obviously now you got EDF in the place, and we know his track record. Didn't really have his team prepared. Yes, Napoli's a difficult opponent, probably the hardest opponent you can face in the opening match day. However, it was like nothing there for Frosinone. And granted, maybe they need a few games to get up to the pace. Maybe play the hardest team first, and then it gets easier from there. We'll see. Torati's going to have to stand on his head this year, much as Salernitana's goalkeeper, name is escaping me at the moment, the Mexican goalkeeper. Ochoa, how he did it for them the second half of the season. Torati's going to have big. Well, Tipo had to be big last year, kind of why Hellas stayed up, So we're going to see big goalie performances from him if his team's gonna have any chance of being in the mix at the end.
Yep, agreed. Oh man, so Napoli, same old going forward. Was able to do it against a promoted team without Kvaratskhelia. You kind of expected that was going to happen. Defensively, we still got questions. Frosinone, man, are they slow? They've got a few creative players in there. Caso, Baez, maybe a little bit of Harawi, but they're certainly a reference point up front. We'll give them some help. But right off the bat, not looking good.